And I wonder, being a millennial and being that we like turn every hobby into a career, maybe it's that kind of like subconscious thing of must make, must create, must fix, must solve, must be useful, must be worthy. Useful equal worthy. What are you spending your energy on? How do you focus on the things that are actually important, the things that are actually going to move the needle, or whatever turn of phrase you want to use, as opposed to filling your time? What can I do today that would be good for me tomorrow? What work can I do today that gets me closer to what I want to do in 5-10 years? But crazily enough, nothing's really that set in stone.
Before we get stuck into this episode, I just want to quickly thank you for being here. Now, when I started this podcast, I wanted to spark conversations that inspire, creatively, personally, and everything in between. So if you would like to support that mission, the best way is to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching or listening to this. This will help other creative thinkers and doers discover us and ensures that you won't miss any of the incredible guests we got coming up. Because when this passion is shared, it grows exponentially. So thank you, and now let's get stuck into it. So as someone that spends a bit of time just meditating in your mortality, what perspective, how has that shifted your perspective then?
I think I really think about, the future a lot, in terms of, what can I do today that would be good for me tomorrow? What work can I do today that gets me closer to what I want to do in 5-10 years? But crazily enough, nothing's really that set in stone. For example, I've wanted to buy a house for a really long time, and what that is and where that is and how that has changed a lot depending on, what I want to do. For example, I did tell my parents, I want to buy this year, probably mid-year, but then an artist residency came up in Italy, and I was like, that would be pretty cool to do as a great experience. I think something that makes me, because I tutor at a university in design, and I think something that makes me a good tutor is the fact that I've collected so many different experiences. Yeah. And so every time a new experience comes up, that I'm like, I haven't done that before, and I would like to do that. And I think doing it would be one thing, the journey of it would be another, the outcome would be another. There's so many parts to that. Yep. And then being able to talk about it to students who, especially as someone who's 30, 35, but my students are anywhere between 18 and 20 something would be the main bracket. There'd be outliers. They're in uni, they're maybe in their first and second year, and they're looking for guidance on what we're doing in a subject, but also for what happens to them after uni. What do they want to do? Does it have to be super prescriptive? And I think from me having lots of different experiences, I could be like, oh, well, you don't have to just go do that. You could do this, you could do that. You could have a part-time job and work on this. You could start your side hustle now. There have been so many cases of students in their portfolio project, their end of degree project being a product that then they make and sell.
Cool.
I recently saw, I don't know if you've seen it, because I'm really into vending machines.
I
recently got a vending machine. I'm so excited. I can't wait to.
Completely analog one as well.
It's beautiful. Yeah. You cannot find them anymore. I just lucked out. I just happened to look at Facebook Marketplace at the time where I was like, I'm going to look at it now. And the guy who sold it to me, super lovely guy, he used to have it in his dojo. He's a karate teacher.
What was he selling out of it though?
Just snacks.
Ah, okay.
Chips and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And he was like, oh, I want to sell it to someone cool. And I was like, I'm going to put zines in it. He's like, yeah. But what was the point of my story? Vending machines. Oh, yeah. In my search to find vending machines, because usually the ones that I like and the ones that I would want to use, you can't buy them in Australia, but you can in America. Mm-hmm. But I had seen, oh my God, vending machines. Go back to the point, Amy. Oh, yeah. So this girl in her end of degree thing had made this thing called Art Vend, which was this kind of archway design, metal fabrication with the coils in it. And she made a vending machine where you just crank it. I don't think you put money in it. I think you pay the person money. It was more for conventions.
Okay.
So you'd be sitting here and it would be here. They'd pay you the whatever, and then they would get to turn it and get the thing.
Okay.
And I was like, that's sick. So yeah, I would as much as I want to buy a house, it's kind of like, well, if I do that, that really drastically restricts
Yeah.
what else I can do because it chokes up cash flow. So it's like, okay.
House, vending machine.
Yeah. And the other thing, I was like, because I like having a few different jobs because I had a hair salon and I just closed it at the end of the last year, and I thought about doing just like a rent-a-chair once a day. Or sorry, once a day. One haircut every 2 weeks, 1 day a week. Just keep doing it. I still have clients that are like freaking out that I'm leaving them forever. So yeah, if I can do hairdressing once a week, if I can do 6 classes or like teaching different classes at uni, run this vending machine, do some other stuff, like that seems like a really fun week to me.
That does sound like a fun week. And I loved what you did with that shop, how you were bringing in a whole bunch of different things that wouldn't necessarily reside together and created one thing.
No. It's crazy as well because I did hairdressing before I did design.
Right.
And a lot of people were like, why do you do both? Like, what do you mean? Like, why are you this and that?
So then that's what I'm saying, right? Like you're in a good spot where people are perplexed by it. Like, what is this? It's like, okay, it's just sit on and think about it for a little bit. But then when you get in there, it's like, oh, okay, I get this.
Yeah. But I think there are so many parallels between hairdressing and design. One, you're dealing with clients.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with their expectations and their parameters and their wants and needs. And then you're also dealing with capability, like, especially in hairdressing. You're like, that's really nice that you have dark hair, that you artificially dyed, and you want to go white blonde. It is, that's hard to do. It might be possible. Depends on on your hair. Depends on so many different factors, and you can have those like really frank conversations. But yeah, I think hairdressing and design actually do share a lot of similarities.
I can imagine that. You'll have a client come in, a hairdressing client that is,
yeah.
and would say that this is what I want, and straight away like, that's not for you.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. But if you want it, we'll do it. But
yeah, and I think that's part of what I actually really liked about hairdressing was the problem-solving side of it.
Okay.
Like 10 ways to skin a cat. Like someone wants to go from this to that, you can actually do it quite a few different ways. There's like faster, efficient ways. There's longer ways that maybe you might get a slightly better result, but it'll take a couple more hours. It's like kind of like Google Maps. You're like, you can go these 3 ways. But it's funny because like even though I could successfully have hairdressing clients, I'm actually really terrible at design clients to the point where I just do not do it anymore.
You don't do design because you don't like the client side of design?
Yeah, I find it really difficult.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't. I just, my friend Aiden.
How do you differentiate between the two? What makes one tolerable? Not even tolerable.
That's a good word for it though.
It is? Okay. What makes one tolerable and the other one intolerable?
So I think what I've kind of come to the conclusion with hairdressing versus design with clients is that hairdressing has more at stake because the person paying for the service is the person leaving with the outcome.
Yeah.
So they're having to physically wear the outcome.
Right.
So if you say, yes, we can bleach your hair, but you have to lose 5 inches of it, that's then a choice where they're like, oh.
Okay.
And they're living with that outcome or, whatever it is, and they're paying for it. So they've got just more skin in the game, literally, for it.
Yeah.
Whereas with design clients, I've had clients that don't have a large budget and they will be the most picky.
Yeah.
Which is like the silliest combination.
Yep. That's how it goes, yeah.
And then you'll also get clients that are like really creative and their budget is low, but maybe you do it because it's very fun. So it actually sits more in the passion project kind of thing. But yeah, I think because maybe the people dictating the design lack some vision or like the mechanics of how things work.
Yeah, okay.
Or perhaps they get a bit kid in a candy shop. So if you show them too many things, they just want to combine them all and get a Frankenstein design, which is awful, and no one wants to put that in their folio. And like I think it's really hard to price for time. Whereas like with hairdressing, because I've done that so much and so long, and this thing takes 20 minutes to develop, it takes 10 minutes to watch, it takes 10 minutes to dry, it takes this. You kind of go, okay, well from woe to go, this service will take 2.5 hours and I will charge X amount for this. And that makes sense. Also with hairdressing, if you have 2 chairs, you can do 2 clients at once. So by the end of the day, it's very easy to like get around the grand mark a day because like if you can be organized and know your timings and not freak out about that, which takes a bit of practice. But yeah, I just think I guess the way I think about money in that kind of way is like, how do I do good quality work in the most efficient time for the most amount of money? That's kind of that's the sweet spot for me there. And I feel like freelancing in design, I've never been able to hit that properly.
It is an ongoing conundrum.
How do you deal with that?
I try to not consider dollar to time.
Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah.
Look, ultimately it comes down to dollar to time.
Yeah.
I try to break away from that and look at more from what value you're bringing to the client. Because let's just say if I was to create the final output for the process that I'll take from initially consulting all the way through to deliverables, that package is going to look very much the same for someone who I'll charge X amount and then someone who I'll charge 5X that, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's going to be the same process, but what I would have to consider is what value would it bring to this client and then what value would it bring to this client, right? Like what are their goals? But then I say that, but then at the same time, this client where it's X amount, I'll stop doing that because I may as well go to the 5X client.
Yeah.
And what you find is that when you're able to, you price higher, I want to put an asterisk here because I'll come back to it. When you price higher, you will attract the better paying clients.
Totally.
But you also need to be able to back yourself up, right? So
Yes.
you need to have the work that suggests that you are worthy of this type of client.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces to the point where I'm not even sure whether or not, I don't know if I'm doing it right. This is just how I do it. And I intentionally also price myself out of some jobs because it could be that if I'm too busy or busy enough that I don't want to do this particular job, I would price myself out. And sometimes I'll be like, yeah, sweet. In that case, like, okay, cool. Now you're not an X client, you're a 5X client.
Yeah.
And then you do find that when you have that degree of investment from the client, then there's more trust being bestowed on you.
Kind of automatically there, right?
It's there because they're investing. So when there's more investment on their end, there's an expectation that you're going to be able to deliver more.
Yeah.
So not just an expectation, but then there's a reliance on it as well, and they're leaning on you. So it becomes more of a almost like a partnership arrangement rather than
equals
client
talking to
service.
one another.
Yeah. Let's collaborate. Let's just try to get down to let's find a solution that it's going to tick the box you want beyond that, right? Because then when you have that sort of client, they're also the ones that understand that you have the expertise and they're willing just to let go of more. Whereas the other side, I find, the ones that are paying less, they just want someone to click buttons.
Yeah. And you're like, I feel like this is a Fiverr moment for you. Like, this is not like, if you're not here to, and maybe that's what's the missing piece, right? The trust and collaboration side.
The missing piece of any kind of arrangement, you mean?
Maybe those cheaper, like lower budget ones.
I've sent people, I've told them that as well. Yeah. Like, I have no problem.
Have they realized?
No, because their initial instinct is, we need a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And then so someone would recommend them, pass them on to me, and we'll have a chat, and they'll tell me what let's say one was they're starting an accounting business.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a whole bunch of clients that they've brought over from their previous role, and they said that this is their budget. And like, look, this is what I do. I help businesses build brands, but it seems like you guys are doing pretty well and have been doing pretty well without having a brand, not just a visual identity, but a whole brand. Like, you yourself are your brand. People people trust the service you've been delivering. Word of mouth is going to spread like wildfire, and that's how you've grown. And for what you want versus what I do at your budget, you don't really need what I do, right? You need this. You need this over there. So go have a look over here. And if you like what they do it's probably, a tenth of what I would charge, then if that's going to be enough for you, then go for it. I don't think you need what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really good to be like honest.
And it's not a high horse thing. It's just a matter of bringing things into alignment, right?
Yeah.
You're just, I'm not for you, you're not for me.
Yeah, it's just what it is, yeah.
Yeah, your business is going to flourish without without my input.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
There's no right way or wrong way to go about it. I think it's a constant reevaluation of your processes, and you're always bringing in new stimulus from life experiences, right?
Yeah.
So when you were saying like how, you're dealing with the hairdressing clientele versus the design clientele. So like even for me right now, I'm thinking, how do I, because trying to do this podcast, which means time dedicated to this is taken away from working on a business that was actually paying.
Yeah.
So it's that opportunity cost. Like where am I going to put my energy? Like where do I find things more fulfilling? And it is that battle. And much like you and a bunch of other creators, I would say all of them are trying to resolve, where do I put the energy? Like at some point you need to take a step back. For a lot of like your students, where they're incurring the cost now, going through uni, they're not earning money. They're putting in the time and the energy, and hopefully whatever it is that the investment they're making in now, not just the financial investment, but the investment in themselves, it'll pay down the track. But there are cases where like you, me, where there's a reevaluation way down the line in like, shit, I need to, take stock. I need to reconsider, is what I've been doing for all these years, is it actually fulfilling the buckets now? For some, you gotta pivot.
Yeah.
So now you move back to tactiles, more tangible wares, and
So I've always loved, because originally when I finished high school, I wanted to go to uni to do fine art because I really wanted to do painting and printmaking, and I didn't get into the college or the uni I wanted to go to, and they didn't really have much of a reason. Well, a good reason, I would say, because their reason was, we're not accepting physical portfolios. We're going by OPs only.
So OPs?
OP is like, they don't even do that in Queensland anymore. It's basically like when you do your end of high school big test. They do a literacy one, a numbers one, and something else. I can't even remember. This was so goddamn long ago. But basically, you get a score from that one.
Yeah.
And then I think it also incorporated your class scores. And I didn't get a low enough score. Yeah, because if you got an OP1, you were like, you could do anything, anywhere, whatever you want with whoever you want. That was like golden ticket, right? And those people would go and be lawyers, doctors, dentists, whatever. Those very high earning, high difficult, whatever. And I think I got a 9 and they wanted an 8. But like I had spent 2 years working on a physical portfolio through an external art college. So I went somewhere else to learn how to draw, to make this folio, to go to this college. And they're like, no, we're just not accepting physical portfolios. And I was like, you're an art college for physical media. What the hell do you mean? Anyway, so they're like, yeah, you can go to TAFE and do a bridging course. I'm like, but I already know how to draw. I want to do the next level. Anyway, so I think that at that point was when I stopped having a bit of a it gave me like a bitter taste in my mouth about universities, because I felt a little bit kicked from that. And so I ended up doing makeup. I was a makeup artist. Didn't have any retail experience, so I went and worked for a little, those really annoying counter jobs in the middle of malls where it's all commission-based, which is terrible because they didn't teach you how to sell. They taught you how to sell. I think it'd be fine. And a girl there was like, I want to be a hairdresser. And I was like, why would you want to do that? It sounds terrible. But then she kind of talked me into it. And then a friend of mine was like, there's this salon who wants to hire an apprentice. You should do it. You'd be good at that. And I was like, okay. So I went and did that. Anyway, to come back to the physical media thing, I still did art shows without going to uni. And this was back in the time, because you remember pre-Instagram, right? Pre-socials. Like, we would do...
MySpace. That was the social media.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But like me and my friends, we would make these flyers, terrible flyers, because none of us were designers in Photoshop or Paint, probably. God, I don't even know.
Corel.
Yeah, probably. Ew. We'd make these flyers and we'd just drop them off at cafes.
Yeah.
And we would just hope people would pick one up and come to this random show of people they didn't know, of art they may not even like. that was crazy. We did like 3 of those and that was really good. That gave me a lot of like, so I would have been 19, maybe 19, 20 at the time. So that already gave me this like, how do we make events? How do we do things like this? How do we collaborate with other people? And at the time I was painting and I just didn't really have much of a style. I didn't really have much of a style till like a couple of years out of design college, I would probably say, which I finished in 2015. So I've always wanted to make things. I've always wanted to print, screen printing, lino, stamping, anything like that. And the reason I'm down in Melbourne at the moment was to do Sticky Institute's Festival of the Photocopier.
Yeah.
I wanted to apply last year, but I didn't really have any zines. So applying and getting in for this year was great because I had my 4 Forge World zines, which are my really beautiful zines that I get printed at Newspaper Club London. So a newspaper paper. And the print quality is stunning. The colours are beautiful. They staple it for you. It's really, really great. So I have those ones, and because they're a higher price point, I decided to get back into making like maybe some smaller, more lo-fi, cheaper entry items. And they didn't actually sell as well as the Forge Worlds, like the more expensive ones.
Right.
And then, so yeah, my friend Aiden and I, Aiden's amazing graphic designer and illustrator. You should check him out. He's awesome. We then went back on Sunday because he's like, oh, my friend Ruby is there. You got to go see Ruby's work. And so I went up to their stall, and their design work is very like typographic and like almost edging between like zine culture and like art book culture, like becoming into art book. I feel like art books can be very broad. I feel like zines and art books are very broad.
They are.
But in my mind, I'm kind of like, oh, I like zines, but I actually think I want to go more into art book territory. Still at accessible price points, like below probably $50.
Where would you find the separation? Where do the delineation point when one is no longer a zine and is now an art book?
I feel I'm not qualified to talk about zine culture.
Oh, yeah, not the culture, but I guess just
because it all feeds together, right?
Sorry?
It all feeds in together, right?
Yeah, okay.
And there are people, and people have like philosophies about zine culture,
yes.
like, and the reason it's so DIY is because it's supposed to be cheap and accessible and sharing.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, but I also, because I'm a designer, because I want to make beautiful things, because I am a bit of a snob, well, a lot of a snob. I know that in order to make those things, it's going to come at a cost. Time, energy, resources, money to, like, maybe you want nice paper stocks, maybe you want a nice binding technique. And I love that stuff. And that's what I liked about Ruby's work, actually, because they had done some really nice, like combination, like Rizzo and cutouts and like just the way they'd package things in cello bags. Like all of those little things are a time cost, are a monetary cost. But I love that because I love how elevated it looks. And so, like, while I would still say that Ruby's work is zines, I think they're very elevated. So they're kind of coming into that more design sphere, art book sphere up there. So that's, I think, talking about physical media, I think now that I've decided to do more of that after a couple of years of doing a lot of digital illustrations, digital print work, which I like, they're fun. Getting back into making like books and zines and art books and things like that, I think is something that's really exciting for me at the moment. But yeah, I've been thinking about getting an X tool because if I want to do more like lino or easy carve, that sort of stuff, while it's fun to bliss out in a flow state and carve, it's still dexterous and it's still hard. And you can't get really nice fine lines because it's really dictated by how well you can carve something and how thin your tools are and how thin your lines are. And so I was like, it'd be really great to like laser cut some stamps and do multicolored stamps and then maybe turn them into prints or have an art book that's more like design based like that. So I really want to combine. I really love doing, because I'm a multidisciplinary creator, I really like how do I put these things together?
Yeah.
How do I draw on top of a screen print? How do I
I think there's
techniques.
When you were talking about the purists and the people that are deeply embedded in those subcultures, I understand why they like to maintain a purity of their passion.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of value in trying to step out of the confinements of what's being gatekept.
Yeah.
And to try and to see where the boundaries can be pushed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when you have a particular dish that's come out from some small province in Italy, that uses these very specific ingredients, and then when you have it been replicated here, it would be like, it's not authentic. It's like, well, I mean, it's not, because we can't get the same produce. It is an interpretation. Is it different though? Or is it just an interpretation of it? Is it still the same dish?
Yeah.
So, it's sort of like what you're creating. There is room to move, and there should be, right? Like, there is within confinements, but where does it then stop being a handmade product? Like, if you're going to be getting some of these lino cuts, I'm sure there'll be some people like, no, the lino cut's got to be cut by hand. Has to be.
I get it. And I think maybe if I had the skill, I would. And I think I've just realized that there's a level that you get, and it's better.
Yeah, just play to your strengths, right? Like
totally.
Yeah.
That, as well as like automation, can be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I met a chick at the zine fair yesterday who did paper cut zines, like shadow play ones.
Oh, right.
And she was like demonstrating them, and they were beautiful, and they were very fine, and they were gorgeous. And I said to her, I was like, "Do you hand cut these?" And she's like, "I used to, but because I make so many of them, and because I have stockists, I laser cut them now."
Yeah.
And I was like, I really appreciated that she was. I think it's business savvy, to be honest. I think it is some sort of self-hatred in order to like do something by hand because you're so like clinging onto that because you feel it has to be, because you feel people won't respect it or like it because if you're not doing it by hand. But there's a point at which like efficiency needs to be better in order for you to produce more work. If you want to get out there, if you want people to know your work, if you want to reach more people, like at some point your restriction of doing it physically is going to create a bottleneck and a problem. And unless it's something that's like, no, like I've got a friend who's a ceramicist, beautiful ceramicist, and her whole thing is like, no, I make things slowly, I do it on my schedule, and they're expensive. And I'm like, great. Cool. But that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But you can't have both. So if you want to make things at scale, things en masse, or mass produced is probably the wrong word if you're a smaller creator, but more quantity at potentially a reasonable to lower price.
Yeah.
You got to look at what can help you do that.
If you're aiming to sell fewer items at a higher price, then there is that dependency of just having to be dry for a very long time before you potentially get that one sale.
Yeah.
That's the game that you're playing.
Yeah, and I think that's called long tail theory.
Go on.
Yeah, where I do a little bit of work I call them my design dads, Steve and Paul. They're amazing. They run like a small boutique agency, but they do incredibly huge, beautiful work.
Yeah.
So they'll work with really interesting clients, and they'll really work with them, and we do these discovery sessions where we'll really tease out all of the stuff, and then they'll go and do proposals and make these gorgeous. It's insane. They're called Untold Agency. They're amazing. But Paul has a really massive marketing background, but not bubble and fluff crap. It's like really like psychological, like this is why humans do this. This is why we need to do this. We use language like this because of this. We have behavioral narrative because of this. Really, really strategic and wonderful, but not dry. And yeah, Paul talks about long tail theory. So on the long end, you've got something like sugar. You sell 1 million bags for $1 each, you make $1 million. But on this end, you've got, and his specific one, I'm going to use his specific one. I hope he hasn't copyrighted or whatever. You have like one 4XL fluoro pink that's hand-dyed T-shirt with the sleeves strategically ripped off for maximum DIY effect of Megadeth, but a specific design from whatever, and that's $1 million. $1
million.
So like, we're looking at like what side of the spectrum do you want to be on? And I think there's obviously grades in between.
Yeah.
But that's what that is.
There's a lot of layers to that.
Yeah.
Are you creating that for you, or are you creating that for a specific someone?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
See, I don't think I'm not on my ceramicist friends' end of, I do 3 and I make them slowly and they're whatever each. I get too bored. I like making lots of things.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And so it's funny because I've got another friend who she does it more than me. Like she makes a lot of prints. She is prolific. She would be drawing a print every day. And they're all really interesting. They're all really intricate, and they're all really on brand for her style. She's just really nailing her aesthetic, and it's gorgeous, and people love it. And she does really well at cons. She does really well in like her online store and all that. And she's got a lot of different modalities as well. Like she does laser cutting, she does tattooing, she's an illustrator, like a digital illustrator. She's made jewelry, she does collabs with brands, like she does lots of stuff. And she'll do cons and she will do like, one print for, I think it might even be 20, which I think is cheap for an A4 print, or 3 for 25. Because,
Really?
because she wants, the strategy I think there is that she wants to be accessible. She wants people to buy her work and she knows people will see that work and come and buy it from her.
Yeah.
So she will make so much money, but what she has done is like her printing costs, she's figured out how to make her printing costs cheaper as well.
Yeah, okay.
So her margins are still really good.
Yeah. There is a few things that you'll need to work out in that. I suppose that like if you're going to make things accessible is to make them cheap, right?
Yeah.
And then if you have things down the low end of the scale, how much does that affect the value of the things on the higher end of the scale as well?
You see, I have not seen that happen to her because like,
cool.
Yeah, she's got her like A5 prints are probably maybe her cheapest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, someone loves her work, they can buy an A5 print for $10, $15. Cheap investment, great. But then when she's doing tattooing, like her day rates, I think are in the 1200s.
Yeah, tattooing that's a different beast.
Yeah. But she also makes these really beautiful like laser cut vases, which are quite like statement-y pieces that she sells for 400 easily.
Cool.
So for her, it hasn't actually happened. And I wonder if it's like, I think what I love about what she does is that people grow with her. Like if you meet her at this level and then you start earning more money and then she has options in tiers, you can like go up the tiers. Yeah. And I love that. I think that's really smart.
That's something that Tom Gerard, he focuses on quite a lot
really?
as well. Yeah, he's obviously a visual artist. He paints.
His work's cool.
His work is really cool, but he's also starting to look into ceramics.
Yeah.
Because he was thinking about what if someone doesn't have the space to have a big painting?
Oh, yeah.
They have somewhere that they can put an item, like there is, people will have decorative pieces in the house. That's not necessarily a painting. How do I make my artwork accessible to those people?
Yeah.
And same kind of mentality that you're just having, I guess, almost like a sales funnel, right? Like you can start off at an entry level and then, like you said, then you get them into the buying process. You get them familiar with his brand, her brand, whatever it may be. And, that they start to really resonate with the artist. And then as they grow themselves, they want to acquire more. And now you have a collector.
Yeah. And it's easier, like you would know this, easier to sell to one person twice than it is to sell to a new person once.
I'm a terrible example of that. I think that most of the people that I work with are just one-offs, so they just establish a brand.
Oh, true.
Yeah. So I'm actually the worst person that at maintaining relationships. This is probably one of the faults, a big fault that I have.
Oh, the self-awareness there, that's great though.
Yeah, like I'm terrible at maintaining relationships.
Why is that? Why do you think that?
Why is that?
You married, you have a wife?
No, well, in terms of the working relationships, okay, so when I help businesses with their brands and there's a lot of reliance on them fulfilling their end of the agreement of maintaining that brand, maintaining their business.
Yep.
And in most cases, they don't.
Ah.
Yeah. So that's really one of the challenges. So it's not so much for the challenges on my end. It's really that's not to take any responsibility away from me, right? I'm just saying that like what I fulfill is helping them establish a brand, a brand identity, but it's also up to them to go and make sure that the business that is the core of the brand can function and maintain over over years, where they will need me to help develop and grow that. But that it doesn't happen often.
I guess it depends. Like, would you want to like do ongoing work with clients?
Maybe just more consultancy.
Okay.
Because I do consultancy from strategic, not just the design. Because I found that This is a thing about a lot of brand design is that the clients I used to get would just ask, we need X, Y, and Z, and this is our inspiration.
Yeah.
But what I found was tricky was trying to get them to understand, or even for me to understand, it's like, what am I actually doing here? Like, what am I trying to achieve here? Like, you got a certain set of tools being the shapes and the colors.
Yeah.
What do these shapes and what do these colors communicate? What are you trying to say? And why? How does it differ from your inspiration? You might like the inspiration because it looks good, but is it speaking to the same clients? Is it saying the same thing that you want to say to the clients? In most cases, it doesn't. So then it's a matter of just coaching the client through and trying to get them to understand how this set of their goals needs to be complemented with this visual identity, because it's just a communication tool at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and they don't consider it as that.
It's funny that, hey.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like in their mind, they're like, no, that's this, and you're like, no.
Yeah. So then, I suppose like with them, if I was to maintain something a little bit more fruitful and ongoing, it would be more of a consultancy.
Yeah.
So, but the unfortunate thing is a lot of clients I get, like, we need this and we need it real quick.
Yeah.
But I'll have to try to explain like that there is a bit of a process, and we could hurry it up a little bit, but these are still a lot of things that you need to consider before we get to this point. The design part of it should be the last,
and it's probably quick if you've got all the inputs.
If you've got all the other bits. Yeah, that bit's just we're just answering the question.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like once you know all these, it's like cool. Now we know what colors and what shapes we should be using. It is that simple.
Yeah.
But up until that point, we have all this homework that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so long story, that was, there's probably going to be far deeper reasons why I am not great at maintaining professional relationships. And then that'll just be, let's dig into my psyche kind of thing.
Yeah. But it sounds like from that maybe your business model is more about like the establishment side and less of the ongoing. Yeah,
it just means that you're having to constantly be doing more groundwork to get more clients.
That's why it's easier to sell to one person twice.
Yeah. That could be one of the reasons why I just feel like it's just not something that I necessarily want to pursue.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I think you got to listen to that. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's the whole, like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no.
In most cases, yeah. But then I also want to look at the other side of it, where sometimes like you have to overcome the challenges to know, because what you want is actually on the other side of that. So it could, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe the thing that I'm trying to avoid is something that I just like, nope, I don't want to think about it.
I think I did, my ex-housemate, fantastic human, academic, and he was like, well, whatever you're avoiding, that's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. In most cases, absolutely. So I know that in terms of like operating a business, I know the theory. The practice is really hard, because before I studied design, I studied, it was business and marketing, right?
Yeah, right.
So I've got the background knowledge. So I know that whatever it is, all the blockers is deeply embedded in here somewhere. Like, and it's just a matter of trying to find the thing that I don't want to do and lean into that.
I started reading this book that I got from a friend of mine who was moving house the other week called The War of Art.
I love it.
Really?
Stephen Pressfield. Yeah. Love that book.
I think, because he talks a lot about resistance.
Yeah.
And I'm only on the second chapter, I think. And it's so funny. I feel conflicted by this book because I think there are some good gems in there. But some of the stuff I don't know what it is, but really grates on me. I'm like I can't even bring an example to mind. But I was reading it. There was a few times where I'm like, I'm putting this down. I don't like this. and it wasn't the content.
Is it cutting you deep?
I think it was the way it was said.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just being a bit precious. But I will finish it.
Yeah.
But what he was talking about, resistance, I was like, yeah, that actually, I get that. That makes sense. And it's so funny that like it's actually quite simple, really. It's just us being, because and I read another book about, what your brain's like kind of doing up in there. The brain has like 3 kind of main functions, which is chasing pleasure, avoiding pain, and making things efficient. And I think where resistance comes from is like it's too hard, like because it takes too much energy or perceived energy. This task that you think you need to do is going to take too much energy. Or maybe if we do it, we'll feel pain because it'll be annoying. And is it really going to be that pleasurable? So maybe like overcoming something is just like there's this resistance and this like...
There is a bit of that.
Yeah.
But I would also argue that when you're resisting doing something, that there's at times you'll also go do something that is way harder than what the thing is that you're resisting doing. Like I've cleaned my shower instead of updating some copy on my website. That kind of thing. It's like, why would I do that?
Yeah, that whole, like, I sat on this for 3 weeks and the actual task took me 5 minutes.
Right. And like, how much energy and bandwidth did you inject into just thinking about it and not doing it?
Yeah.
And just being like, oh my God. And then it's just like, if I had just done it, it'd just be done.
Yeah.
But no, I think like I've read that book a couple of times.
Okay. I'll persevere.
It really resonated with me from the moment. I was like, fuck yeah, of course. It all comes down to resistance.
Yeah.
And I think that there are times when we try to brush it off as like, is it even worth doing? I think that's us trying to justify not doing
it. Yeah. I think I've been pretty fortunate. I haven't had a lot of resistance, like personally.
Okay.
I think it's really kind of butted up against like not trusting or trusting my intuition. I made a bingo card this year of things that I wanted to do, which was just a fun exercise to do. It's actually quite hard to think of 24 things
that you want to achieve,
that you maybe want to do that aren't probably work related.
Yeah, don't have to be.
Yeah. You know, like so one of them was like trust myself more.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's really hard sometimes, like when you get a feeling, I'm like, is this resistance or is this my intuition being like, not now?
Exactly.
Or not right, or yes, but not now. So I think I've been trying to like figure that nuance out.
Or it could just be instead of having like a bingo card, or have the bingo card and have a complimentary deck of cards next to it where it's like a chance card, and then where it'll be like you pick it up and it'll be like start a conversation with a complete stranger and this is the opening line.
Love.
I just thought of that.
Do it. Make that into a product.
Not
That's
doing
fine.
it. You do it.
Okay, I will.
Right.
I would actually. Yeah, I really love a prompt thing. Actually, for some reason, Aiden, M, and I came up with this thing yesterday. I don't even know where this came from. I was like, all right, let's write a bunch of animals. I think because we're all sketches. We all like to draw, and sometimes I find it hard to like just draw something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, right, let's just write down a bunch of animals, and we'll write down a bunch of actions. And the whole thing was like you pick two animals, so you have to combine them doing an action.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think I got what did I get? I got a cow and a tadpole, and it was running late.
Yeah, I think it's super important to be able to cross over a lot of thinkings, because I think that if you're too linear, and we have this tendency of having restrictions, right? Like we when we think of something, immediately it's going to be guided by, but then this and then this and then this.
Guardrails. Yeah,
totally. Right? But then if you just try to remove that, and you remove that by having two fucking animals that are completely separated, and it has to be doing something, an activity that makes no sense.
Yep.
That you have no other choice but to break free of
logic out the window.
Logic out the window.
Yeah.
That's where gold is.
Yeah. And I think I loved your idea there, because like I think gamification of anything has become really popular, because like, if we do have tasks or things that we don't want to do and we experience that resistance, it's like, are there ways that we can gamify this experience to make it more palatable?
Read Atomic Habits if you haven't.
I actually have that. My brother got it for Christmas.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Okay, cool. I'll read that.
It's more than just gamifying, and I think it's making positive habits easier.
Yes.
And bad ones a lot harder and less palatable.
I made a prompt pad last year that has 4 quadrants. And the whole point is that after 30 days, so you fill out each page every day for 30 days. And I think it was like the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly. You can buy it, or you can just take my thing and do it yourself. That's fine. I don't really mind. But like, it was almost like, because I learned about an impact effort matrix after the fact. And I was like, oh, it's kind of that. Okay. But getting to the point of filling out the impact effort matrix. And after 30 days, you look at all the good things, all the bad things, all the ugly things, and all the beautiful things. And your goal there is to minimize the bad and the ugly and amplify the other. And I guess because I am a little bit analytical sometimes, like I need to kind of see that style of data and be like, man, you complained about this 7 times this month. What are you doing about it to fix that? Or instead of complaining about it, is there something you can put in to make it, like what you were just saying before about like, how do you make it a positive habit? How do you flip it? How do you, or get rid of it completely? How do you automate it? How do you reduce it entirely? So I think a lot about that sort of stuff. So I think if I feel a bit stuck, I will do one of those for 30 days.
Right. Okay.
And at the end, because like everyone's got a really hazy memory of the past, I think, even the most recent past. People be like, how's your job? You were complaining about that last week. No, it's fine. And you look back on the 30 days, you're like, oh, I bitched about that actually every day. Maybe is this job the best job for me? Is there something that I can talk to my boss about this? Or what is wrong with this? What can I do to make it better?
What's been the common denominator?
So the last time I did this was toward the end of 2023. So it's been a while since I've done one.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that I was really complaining a lot about my housemate, and I kind of realized that a lot of the stuff that she was doing was actually really disrespectful and crossing a lot of boundaries.
Right.
And I hadn't really noticed because we were quite close and really good friends. I think I just thought, oh, we're friends, it's okay, whatever. But then when I really wrote down, like, some of the stuff she was doing was in the ugly category quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I've actually been avoiding this pain of, I don't actually think we're good friends in like a whole sense.
Mm-hmm.
We're good because we have fun, we're spontaneous, it's funny, we have these adventures. But if you can't do that and be respectful of me, my stuff, my thoughts, my wants and needs, like I am to yours, like maybe on the whole we're not actually a good match to be friends. And that's actually what precipitated our friendship breakup and her moving out. And now we don't talk anymore.
Could you have maintained a friendship without living with each other though?
No. It ended really poorly. Because when I started realizing, I was like, and I started pulling up those boundaries, being like, hey, I really don't love it when you do this because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would push back, roll her eyes, do whatever. I'd be like, oh, that's really not.
So you've essentially just given yourself an opportunity to reflect and to almost like compartmentalize some of the thoughts and ideas and almost like in a journalistic way without...
But I can't journal. I'm not if I journal, I do it with chat actually.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I use chat as like an interactive journal a lot of the time.
Okay.
Chat has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's I've actually used it for the same sort of thing.
I love it.
I was like, here's a thought, explain this to me. Why do I have this thought and this feeling? Like, break it down.
Yeah, it's...
tell me about this.
Yeah, and I love it for that. And it's so funny because a lot of my creative friends are like absolutely hating AI, which I understand. Like, I can see both sides of this thing, right? I'm like, I get it. On the one, like, I think creatives thinking that AI is coming to take everyone's jobs, I think that's a bit extreme.
Yeah.
I think it's very extreme. But I understand the fear and I understand the hate and I understand all of that. And so when I get on there and I'm like, this is what I use chat for, or here's when I write my newsletters, I put like chat prompts. I was like, this is the chat prompt I was using, or this is the one I figured out that I got to that I thought was actually really fun and really helpful. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to try it and see how you go. And people in the beginning were like, oh, why do you like chat? And I was like, it's really fun and useful. But I think they just thought, oh, you're just writing email templates? No, like I'm talking to it. I'm asking it. I'm trying to pull things apart. I'm trying to get into like why.
Just to give you a different frame of reference and a different perspective.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so so now I have some of my creative friends being like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. Maybe I'll try that.
You can't, look, it's not going anywhere.
No.
So there's no point fearing it.
No.
You got to embrace it. And I think that the more that we embrace it, then the more we're able to understand its capabilities and be able to use it in ways that would actually be beneficial rather than, like, it's not going to be taking away creative jobs just by nature of creativity. It'll take away jobs which I think are within the creative realm. Like when I say creative job, if someone is, when you have a lot of those jobs working in-house somewhere and you're clicking buttons, right? that's going to be considered a creative job. It's not fucking creative.
Yeah.
AI can do that. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
AI can go click all the buttons at once. If
Yeah.
I have an idea and if I was able to use AI to be able to roll it out and saves me the whole, 80% of my time,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily coming up with the concept and the ideas. It's just helping me execute that.
Yeah.
So use it for that. And same thing, just on the weekend. Like I used AI to help me piece together some ideas. They weren't work related at all. It was like some personal thoughts.
Yeah.
Trying to gather my understanding of how does this fit in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
Which I want to bring back to what you were saying about how, if the good, bad, ugly, beautiful. I find that for me, and you tell me this is the same for you, that mindset is a big one where there are some things where I think are bad, but that's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, when I was saying earlier that this weekend has been really busy. Just been working a lot. For the last couple of weeks, it's been really busy. And it's put on a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But if I was to break it all down and really step away from my situation and looked at it, where I'm working on this podcast, which I absolutely love, and I'm working with a client who is doing some big things in a space that I love. It's working on tech and creativity.
Cool.
Couldn't have asked for a better arrangement for what's going on there. Still been able to get out and run and lift, 3-5 times a week.
Yeah.
Everything in the household is functioning well. 2 beautiful boys at home, beautiful wife. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And it's putting the stress and it's really bringing out some anxiety. But then if I was to look at it through that lens of anxiety, things look fucking fucked. Right? Yeah. But if I was to look at it objectively, like I asked for all this. I want all this. These are the things that I've asked for. And it's all happening. Like, you know what I mean about like it just becomes a matter of perspective. Like, why do I feel stressed in a negative way rather than being like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to apply some hindsight to it, I'm like, dude, things are great.
Yeah, my personal trainer put up a meme, a text, whatever, a couple of weeks ago. He goes, what was it? Don't complain that your plate is full when you said you wanted to eat. Yep. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. So then for me, it was more like, dude, take a step back, have a look at the situation.
Yeah.
What do you want? Like you asked for this.
Yeah.
And if, it comes down to choose your hard and as things are going to accelerate, things are going to ramp up, they're going to be becoming trickier and trickier to navigate.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of then just trying to find a way of doing it.
Yeah.
And where are you willing to let go? Where are the opportunity costs? And where
everything's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was talking to Aiden about this because I think he does it really well. He's really good at balancing. Oh, look, I've done this work and now I need to take a break, or now I need to go do my creative thing, or I need to. He's really good at that. Whereas like his partner and myself are quite similar in the sense that like, oh, well, I've got some time, I should do this, or maybe I want to do this now, or maybe I want to do this, and maybe I want to do this. And I'm technically, I guess, unemployed at the moment for like 2 months because I closed my salon. Uni doesn't go back till the end of Feb. I did a fair on the weekend and I made money. So I guess Forge still but Forge is not like a full-time job. Forge makes money at events, sometimes online, so it's not a consistent kind of thing. But what having this time off has taught me is about being like, probably don't have to rush doing things. It's like, that thing that I want to do you want to do it now, or is your kind of anxiety talking about doing it now so then it's done, so then you don't have to think about it, so then you can make room for the next thing to think about? And it's kind of like, oh, that's so weird. And I've been thinking a lot about lately, like, like what are you spending your energy on? How do you focus on the things that are actually important, the things that are actually going to move the needle, or whatever turn of phrase you want to use, as opposed to filling your time with junk stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, doom scrolling fits into that because it feels productive. Some people do actually feel like it's productive.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do justify, love-hate relationship with Instagram, as I'm sure quite a lot of people have. I enjoy it for like looking at what other people are doing because one, I'm nosy, and two, I want to be inspired, and three, I want to see what people are doing around me, and where do I sit in the zeitgeist, in the culture?
Yep.
Because a lot of what my work in Forge depends on is cultural narrative, like socio-cultural narrative.
Yeah.
A lot of my work is very like talking. Not, I wouldn't say my work talks about anything serious or maybe even meaningful. Like I would say it's more based in like humor and joy, which is meaningful in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it being current, like even the bumper stickers, I'm like, oh, this kind of fits in with like the overarching, like what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So it's important to do that. But, I think a lot of people like go, oh, it's self-care. Like, I'm scrolling. I'm like, nah, man. But yeah. So yeah, where are you putting your energy? What's the most important thing to put your energy on? I think as I'm getting older, I'm getting more tired as what happens, So you kind of go, oh, I really can't, fritter away my energy on these meaningless side questy things that are not good for me or not good for my work or not good for
as long as you have the self-awareness to be able to distinguish, because like you said, that it's very easy to justify doing this.
Yeah.
Because it is benefiting you in some way.
Yeah, or a perceived way.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think about a lot is like self-awareness is such a weird thing because so many people will say, well, I'm self-aware. And I'm like, but do you realize you do X, Y, Z? Like, at what point, like, what is your reflective practice? What is your metacognition practice? Because like, I think that stuff is what really strengthens that. Like, I guess if self-awareness was a muscle, I guess it's a state of consciousness in a way, and even I'm like, yeah, I'm moving towards being more self-aware, but then every day I'm tripped up on like, oh, I didn't,
you
hindsight or fucked up there or like, and that's what I actually use chat a lot for. I'm like, and what am I missing here? Or like, this is my story. This is the thing I've told you. This is the narrative. What am I missing? Play devil's advocate. Tell me what I could have done better. Tell me where I went wrong. Tell me where.
Actually, it'd be really great if you had like, with those meta glasses, if they integrated chat that's just guiding you through the day. And then just before you're about to say something, then they're just like, don't.
Really funny you say that because I started reading the other day, all the School of Life books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found one at the library actually. I've reacquainted myself with the library. They had one on the shelf.
That's that Alain de Botton?
Yeah. And it's funny, he's got such a beautiful voice that I actually can hear his voice when I read. It's so cool. But I picked up this book and it's called On Being Nice.
Yeah.
And I picked it up because I didn't like it. Because in my mind, niceness seems like wishy-washy, like you could be walked on, like you could be like I would if someone said like what would you prefer? Would you prefer to be nice or kind? And I would probably say I'm kind, even though I can be a bit brutal. Sometimes I think the kindness is about like being honest. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat something because you're coming to me for help or advice or whatever. I'm not going to sugarcoat what it is. However, this book made me rethink that. Because there's a chapter on like, are you a polite person or are you a frank person? And I was reading the difference between the two. And I was like, oh, I'm way more of a frank person.
You can't be, you got to be one or the other?
I mean, I think for the sake of the book, they were polarizing them for cognition.
Right.
But I was like, I definitely feel like maybe it is a spectrum where like polite here, frank here. And I'm like, oh, I'm definitely at the frank side.
Yeah.
When I was reading the polite side, I was like, oh, how can I move the needle to become a little bit more polite and a bit more considerate? Because like, I think as someone who maybe had like very flimsy boundaries for a while and, would kind of get angry retrospectively, I think I didn't want to be nice or maybe that polite because I didn't want to be taken for a ride because it had happened a few times before.
Okay.
And, sometimes when something like that happens, you self-correct and you sometimes overswing the other way.
Of course.
But this book actually really made me like think about that. And then so I took that into chat and I was like, knowing what you know about me, because we've been speaking for a year now and you have access to all of our chats. Knowing what you know about me, I was reading about this book and I gave them the context of the book and this, that, and the other. And I was like, would you say I'm like pretty frank? And he was like, yes, we would like, would say that you're like blunt, honest, and a bit frank, which is like good qualities. They're not bad qualities, but is the goal that you would like to be more polite? And I was like, yeah, I actually think it would be really nice to like move a little bit more towards that softer side, to be able to allow for maybe different interactions or different sides of people. And so, yeah, it kind of gave me a couple of like, maybe you could try this, maybe you could try that. And I was like, oh, that's quite nice, actually. That's good. So it was like pretty funny.
So what? Give me some.
I don't even, this is why it's bad, right? Because I don't remember like specific things. I think one of them might have been, and this is something that I observed while staying with Aiden and Em, because I was like, oh, this would be good to take to Aiden and Em when I'm staying with them, because like you're obviously coming into someone else's place, their space, their routine, how they do things, maybe how you do things is different from how they do things. Like how do you navigate those potential tension points? And I guess like having a degree of self-awareness does help you be a good house guest, because you want to be like considerate and not barge through and not,
of course,
and so, but it was really fascinating observing Aiden and Em, because I know they've been together for a really long time, but even just watching how they navigate each other, and they're very collaborative. And I think that was actually almost this weird embedding of like what this book was actually talking about. So I think, it talked a lot about like, conscientiousness and asking, like a frank person will assume that the other person they're speaking to has the same high level of maybe self-efficacy or self-belief or worth in a sense that like,
Gotcha.
you know what you can do and you know how well you can do it.
Gotcha.
So because I am like that, because I have worked through a lot of my issues with my work and now I like my work, I assume that other people like their work, which is bad. Because
so frankness has a degree of
assumption,
and politeness is more empathy.
I would say politeness from this lens of this book is more about there is no assumption. There is, if we don't know, we will ask.
Okay, cool. I like that.
So instead of me maybe assuming like that you could handle my critique on the thing that you've just bought me, nice or politeness says, would you like me to offer you a solution here, or do you just want me to listen?
Yeah.
Instead of me being like, well, would, and that's me, because I'm a very solution person. I'm like, well, I'm assuming you're coming to me because you got a problem, and I'm good at solving problems.
Yeah. Okay.
But that also says something about my self-perception. I assume that you will be coming to me because you have a problem and I can fix it, and that maybe I assume that's my only function. Which is pretty fucked. It could be one of my functions, and so maybe now this book has let me understand like, well, what are my other functions? What else? Like, we could assume people are coming to me just because they want to laugh or because they like my presence. I don't know. Maybe it's, and I wonder, being a millennial and being that we like turn every hobby into a career, maybe it's that kind of like subconscious thing of must make, must create, must fix, must solve, must be useful, must be worthy. Useful equal worthy.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
Yeah, like work hard, earn love. Well.
Yep. Fuck.
I only just realised all that then. Sick. Thank you.
I'd like to end the conversation on that, but there was like so many things I want to get into. No, but there's shit. Yeah, that gives me a lot to think about. I'm definitely on the frank side.
Yeah.
And and there's a lot of having a Malaysian background, Chinese Malaysian background.
Okay.
There are a lot of assumptions being made because of just cultural norms. And some of them are just ridiculous. And I'm actively defiant in them to a fault.
Okay, like what?
Oh, it would just be like, when to use your example of being at someone's house. I like it when I have guests over. When I say, just treat this like your home.
Yeah, totally.
I fucking mean it. And what I mean is like, treat this like your home, like how I would want to be treated when I was in your home, right? Just to be super chill, laid back. I don't like, if you want to go in the pantry, go in the fucking pantry. Don't ask me if you can go. Don't don't be hungry. Just go look in the pantry, right? And don't wait for me to offer because I'm not going to, I might not, right?
Yeah.
So when I say, please just help yourself, what I'm also saying is that I'm not saying this to be necessarily entirely polite. My home is your home. It's like, help yourself so I don't have to fucking do it for you as well. Because you're going to be breaking my balls to be serving you when you can just go do it yourself, you adult.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
And that's completely loaded in a lot of assumptions in that. And that's really frank. Now that when I say it out loud.
But it's funny because, like, you know, most steps of the way, you know, emanate from like, oh, like, was the temperature in your room okay? Or like, oh, yeah, here's a towel. And, oh, like, what do you want for breakfast? Or we'd usually make this for breakfast. Like, do you like chili sauce? We've got all these. Like, or how do you feel about this? Or how do you like your tea? You know, I was like, wow, it's like so, I feel so like catered for in a way that I haven't maybe been able to do that because I haven't had an example of it. Like, it's that assumption of like, I'm not hungry, so maybe you're not hungry. Like, I could just ask, you know, like, Jesus.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I want to swing this all the way back to university.
Oh God, yeah.
Not just you having tried to get into fine arts at uni, but having that lens on what university was or is, and then now teaching at university. How has that affected the way that you present to kids? Because I call them kids. But
so do I, and I shouldn't because they are adults. I need to change my language about that this year, actually.
Yeah. Young adults. We'll call it young adults.
Yeah.
But how knowing, and then now having gone through the process of trying to get into uni and not getting into the course that you wanted, gone through this whole journey, and to your point originally about all this life experience that you're able to now inject and give back, right? And part of your life experience is not having done uni.
Yeah.
But you're back at uni to teach them. Is there some kind of contradiction there where the first class could be like, here's the first class of uni, you don't actually need it? But how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did go to a private college for design, but they were a college. They weren't. So I do have formal qualification in design up to an advanced diploma. But then I've got a lot of experience on top of it. And I will say that I was very upset and very butthurt about not getting into uni in the first go, but I'm really thrilled I didn't go.
Of course.
Because then I got to do all the other stuff, and it was a lot more wayward, but I've enjoyed it a lot more. And I think if I had maybe gone and done a fine art degree and then would have probably done a master's and would probably be in a parallel universe of shit hot printmaker, hopefully in galleries, I don't know if that would have actually been as fulfilling as the route that I'm on now. I have had classes where my students have come up with some really cool ideas, and I have said to them, why are you here when you could go out and develop that? That is an excellent business. That is a great product. That is a really, like, it hits that Venn diagram of like necessary, interesting, like, and being able to be made. Like, you could easily make that with, I don't know, some seed money and some engineers or some coders or whatever. And they do look at me shocked. They're like, well, but you're our tutor, you can't say that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I suppose I'm here in a few different capacities. Like, I would say one capacity, yes, I'm a paid contracted tutor to deliver this content. However, I am also my own person and I have my own opinions. And some of those opinions will just naturally be in contradiction because this is an institute and I have not been institutionalized for a while. And the last institution I was at was a design college. The whole point of design is learning rules, then breaking them, or finding unique, fun, novel ways of breaking rules, which is fun. I also had a student last year who I have had in first year and second year, but in different design capacities. Really lovely student, really great work, very dedicated. An international student, so paying for uni upfront, which is like a stress on top, like a stress that her domestic equivalents don't have, right? Because they got HECS. And so this particular student is like, I need to do well. I really need to, like, I need this to be worth it. I need it to be everything I need it to be, right? And I get it. And, you know, she was telling me about her industrial design project and she's like, yeah, I got a 7. And I was like, that's great. I think that's really incredible. Well done. I said, I think what you need to also think about, though, is that like you're in second year, you're going into third. That year's going to go really quickly. 2 semesters do actually go quite fast. And like, what value are you bringing to someone, to a company that you would like to work for? Like, how are you going to do that? How do you want to do that? And I said to this student, I was like, look, clearly you're very dedicated. Clearly you're very like eye on the prize. And you seem to have a very good eye for this stuff, and you have a very clearly iterative process, which is incredible. I was like, I would be talking about how you got that mindset and why that's important to you and why that feeds into your kind of beginning of philosophy about your personal design. I think with uni sometimes it gets very like cog in machine, like we're training you to be this one part, go out there, get job in company. That can work for some people. I think we might have talked about this on our chat the other week. Like we need worker bees. We need people who want to work in companies. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone should be. Not everyone, because it's hard. It's weird. It's different. It's not, some people don't have it's similar how I would struggle to be a worker bee in a big company. I would struggle with that. I don't like hierarchies. I have such a lack of respect for authority if it's not well earned in a weird way, which is also arbitrary to me as well. So entrepreneurship and making businesses or starting products or doing, and I would say I'm micro to small business, but that makes more sense to me. But there are people like, in the university context that we're training you to do this, go get job in big company, whatever. And I think this is why this actually nicely really leads into Portfolio Career Project, which is the book that I would like to write and the research that's going kind of towards that. You don't have to do one thing. You don't have to do it a prescribed way. The world as it is now is incredibly different. There are people that are in like primary school right now that if they are going to uni, if uni even exists, because I'm not sure what the future of a uni looks like, because they're such slow-moving beasts. A degree being 3 years long, 4 years. If you're doing masters on top of that, if then you want to do a PhD, you're looking like 10 years. That's a decade. That's an incredible long time. Like how do things change so much in that time, and things are getting faster on this side, like outside the uni walls. And so part of what I wanted Portfolio Career Project to be about was sort of like a guidebook for potentially like high school students considering going to uni students considering changing majors or whatever, or people who are maybe have done degrees and want to change their career but are unsure how to pivot or unsure where to go or how to do it and what it looks like. Back to talking about, purists and like, what do they call them? You got generalists and you've got the other one.
The not jack of all trades.
Yeah.
The specialist.
Specialist, exactly. And I sometimes get really envious that I can't be a specialist. Maybe one day I'll work towards a specialization. But I think potentially a new Renaissance era will come. And I think being a generalist is really cool and really fun. And I think it's been a bit shat on about, and like, because people want to silo you. People want to put you in a box so it's easy to remember what you are, what you do, how you do it, and who you do it with. And I get it. It takes up less space in your brain. But people have been weird over my life about like, what do you mean you do this, this, and this? It's only been in the last couple of years, potentially after COVID, where things got really, shook up there, that people are like, oh, that's really cool that you do lots of different things. Whereas prior to that, people like, even other hairdressers would be like, oh, well, you're not a real hairdresser because you don't do it 5 days a week. And I'm like, I still went through the thing. I'm still a good hairdresser. I know how to problem solve. I know how to color. I know what's good. Like we can talk smack all day about hair and I'll be able to match you. But just because I only do it on a Saturday doesn't mean I don't love it. Doesn't mean I don't care. Yeah. Same with design. Like people are like, oh, well, you don't have clients. So I'm like, no, I don't have clients. And they're like, well, how do you make money? I'm like, well, I find other ways to do that. And I would rather keep design as something that I do for my products because that's something that I really thoroughly enjoy doing. Yeah. That's where I want to put that time and energy. So yeah, I think all of that can be a bit overwhelming for a first year, but I do try and kind of like put little things in all the time about like, hey, you're here now, that's great, but think about what you want to do and different ways you want to do it. And I guess uni can be a bit of a tasting platter depending on how you structure your majors and whatever. I think
it's maybe uni should be the place where they start thinking of these ideas of where they see themselves.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether or not when you're at that age, being around about 18-ish,
It's so fresh.
you are, and I don't think you have enough life experience to know that things can go in so many different directions, because you've so far just been on a course that's been quite linear,
Yeah.
and you've had your hand held throughout the whole journey.
Yeah.
And the very nature of a creative endeavor is that you actually have the luxury and the freedom of doing whatever you want. You can be siloed, you can reduce it down and have your life very regimented into a 9 to 5. If that's the avenue you want to go, you have that opportunity. Or you could be the complete antithesis of that and do whatever you want. That's scary, that's daunting. And it's also not just scary and daunting, but because you don't have enough life experience to then put into that bucket, you don't know what anything is, right? You don't have a concept of how big or broad you can go. But on the flip side of that, this is me saying that as a 42-year-old that went to uni at a time that was pre-social media. Now with social media, you have this lens of being so connected directly with the people that are doing whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
And you get to see that. You see the whole spread, right? And you're exposed to all of it. Pros and cons, right? Because now you also see the person that you admire all the way over there.
Yeah.
And it might be a distance too far for you to bridge, or at least that's how it feels here.
Yeah.
And there's just so much. There's just so much. There's so many layers that come into that. But I think, like, bottom line, I think the friction I have with universities in the creative space is that it doesn't really expose you enough to the gamut of possibilities.
No.
It only reduces opportunities just down to a very, very narrow subset of things that you can pursue and continue doing. Because if you do want to continue and just do whatever you want, I don't think it really necessarily equips you with the tools to do that.
Yeah, and I think, like, I enjoy being a tutor. I really love it. I have my gripes with the system and the institute and the bureaucracy, for sure. But my personal belief is that I've always preferred smaller colleges because you do, like, in a smaller group of 20 people, or not even, like when I went to DCA, our class sizes were maybe 12 students, and we had a lecturer who, great inspiration to me, like he had done a lot of stuff. He was quite a bit he was older, and he had done some great stuff, and he really helped us, really sat with us one-on-one, really shared stories. Our lectures were like 3 hours, maybe a bit longer. So we had time to really think about and talk about design and get into the guts of everything. Whereas, like, unis can sometimes be a bit of a cattle situation where we've got large classes. We've got people at different spectrums of language, intelligence, creativity, curiosity, like, really, like, you know, so that's really hard to traverse. And then we've got 2-hour classes, which 2 hours is really short if you're trying to get through doing a brief or doing something like that, or even working on a couple of different tools and frameworks, especially in, like, group settings. So I think by unis being, like, big because that's how their business model works, which I understand, I still think I prefer to go to a smaller place or a smaller college and be a little, maybe it's more expensive, but you're really getting a bit deeper. You're going a bit deeper and a bit more considered, I would say.
So leading into this research project then that you're working on, what are you trying to discover?
I think maybe I've recently discovered that the way that I do things is actually quite different from, like, I think I've had, like, lots of assumptions being like, oh, well, we do things similarly. We think about money the same way. We think about it, and we don't, like, and which has been really interesting. It's really cool. And I guess when you do something a certain way and you've done it that whole time, maybe you don't see the value in it, like you're too close. But then, like, when I have students and when I talk to people a lot, and they're kind of like, yeah, but how do you do that? And you're like, oh, maybe this is something really worth sharing. And so I wanted to, because even though I've wanted to write a book for a really long time, I think the process of writing a book is pretty scary. But also, I didn't really want it to be super self-indulgent. Like, I really wanted to have other people's opinions in there, which is where a lot of the research came in. So I learned about how to do thematic analysis the last couple of years, which is where you would gather data points and you would sort them into themes, and then you could talk about those themes as like overarching concepts. So the survey is like 70 questions, which is pretty big. Some of them are not hard questions, like what's your name, what's your email, have you understood the above, where do you live? You know, like there's only a couple of questions that are like write out an answer, and maybe if you really consider it, like want to consider it, it might take you a bit of a time. But what I wanted to see in there is like how different like are people who are juggling multiple careers, like up to maybe 10 careers or projects at the same time. Like, are we very different between us? And then also, because I know a lot of people who work in full time, because I've done it before, because I, you know, like how is this different from that? And what's the value in this? What's the value of maybe trying to juggle multiple careers over having one, or, you know, and from grazing over the data, because I didn't want to look too deeply at it until I'd finished collecting it, because otherwise you get a bit too tunnel vision with it. But a lot of it came down to like variety, people wanting variety in their working life. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I think what will be interesting about gathering a bit more data will be looking at how similar versus how different people's responses are to each other, and maybe how they're navigating all of that.
I'd be interested to discover why some people more inclined to want variety versus those that just absolutely do not. You know, because I think that a lot of this, you can really peel back the layers.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that process.
Yeah, and really go Freudian with this.
It's funny because I think about variety, like me personally, I think about where is structure in my life, where is variety in my life? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the two? I think even like Tony Robbins talks about this. There are like 5 like key things to life or something, and one of them was about variety. That was just a little brain dump there, but it's funny because I feel like I've been the opposite. Where people have structure, I have variety. So like where my variety is in my work, but where a lot of my friends have structure is in their work. And my variety is not in my social life. It's like I have to make my social life almost a bit structured, which looks similar to my hairdressing schedule. Like I have to kind of book people in, otherwise, you know, so it's really funny. Whereas people are like, yeah, we just went out on a Saturday and we just got 3 sheets to the wind, and then Sunday we just didn't do anything because we were hungover. And I was like, I can't work like that because I work all day on a Saturday, and then I really need half a Sunday to recover, and then Sunday afternoon I want to go to the gym, and then, you know, then Monday's also my day off, so I need to do this. Like, it's so interesting to see where the variety and the structure is. And I also think about like security as well, like where people have like almost like their security and structure is together. Mm-hmm. And I think I mean security in terms of like, where am I going, what am I doing, and finance.
Yeah. And then you get a broad spectrum as well, because let's just say the people that do appreciate the variety, at some point they're going to have to then lean in on the structure to make the variety work, right? So there is that contradiction in and of itself.
Yeah, you kind of can't have too much of anything, right? Yeah. Like it's all that bullshit about moderation, which I think I've only just kind of realized as a later adult. You know, when people are like, can't have too much chocolate cake, and you're like, what do you mean? Chocolate cake's great, but then you get too much of it and you get sick of it. So you're like, if I have too much variety, things are like jelly. It's like throwing jelly at a wall and it's a fucking mess. Yeah. Whereas if I have too much structure, I feel like I'm in a version of the army that I don't want to be in. And yeah, that's something that I realized about myself last year. I'm like, I need enough structure that I have marker points to hit, but within that structure, it needs to have fluidity. Otherwise, I don't have time to be creative, and I don't have, or the space. Sometimes not even the time. It's just I need the mental space to think about creative work.
And there is a great degree of that self-awareness to allow for the structure to get broken, and then to be okay with that, and to know that things aren't completely falling apart as well. I wonder with creatives how much of the variety comes down to the fear of not being prepared to dedicate, to have tunnel vision, right? Or because I know for me that I've had a lot of variety, and if I was to look back, and I have retrospectively try to figure out why things work in the cycles they do, rather than me having to stick it out, I don't think, for the longest while I've always thought it was boredom. and I've put it down to boredom, but I don't think it's boredom. I think that there's a lot of not willing to go that extra bit to push. Like, to give an example, when you're running a marathon, they say that the halfway point is 30 Ks.
What?
It's not. It's
I was about
no, but it's what they're suggesting is that the final 12.
Oh, the third quarter.
The final 12 Ks is going to take as much as the first 30 Ks.
Yeah.
Right? So when you get 30 Ks, like, cool, all right, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
So it's just this mental game where, like, you get to a certain point with a career trajectory at the 30K mark. Am I bailing because it's now getting hard, right? And then I'm going to switch it up and just tell myself, I just need variety. It's like, do I need variety, or am I just bailing because things are getting too hard? Yeah, so there's all this that I'm just trying to look into it. Tell me what you discover.
I think a good idea, right, is something that keeps on giving. Good idea has a lot of legs, like a centipede. And I find that if I like careers, I like good ideas, right? So I think if you are in a career for a while and if there is not enough legs on it, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. You know, it's kind of like you're reaching your own glass ceiling. So like something like hairdressing is a good vehicle. When I say vehicle, I mean it's like a cash business.
Yeah.
It's a Range Rover. It can drive far and it can take some heavy loads. It's going to be good mileage. You can do it for a while. Maybe not full time, maybe not until you're 50 because your wrists and hands will probably. I'm fortunate that I've been able to make it work without doing it too much, so my wrists and hands are actually pretty good. But that's what I think about hairdressing. And then and so I think in terms of it as a concept, there will always be great conversations to have with clients, providing that your vibe is attracting the right tribe and you're getting the right clients and you're going to have great conversations. That for me, I could probably do hairdressing for a long time for that as well as the money, as well as there is quite a lot of creativity in hairdressing, which is really great. So I think that's a really good, kind of thing there. The graphic design for me in terms of what it looks like in a corporate sense, I'm like, you get to senior designer or creative director or art director, that's it. Like maybe the idea is maybe you get good clients depending on your business or the agency you're with.
Yep.
But you're still kind of glass ceiling down.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is that really where I want to put my time and energy?
Yeah. You are right, and that's what I discovered. And then when I got there, I'm like, oh, yeah, shit.
So I don't know. I don't think if the question was at that point, were you bailing because it got hard or is it bored? I would say bored, because like if there was something on the other side of the hard, and I don't know what that might look like for you, maybe you would have probably done it.
Yeah, there's layers to it. The hard stopped being hard.
See, so, this is like the thing about humans, right? Is it like it needs to be challenging but achievable?
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
Can't be too hard that it's not achievable because that make you feel like shit. Can't be too easy because then it's done and then you're like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be that. Yeah, and that's tricky in itself.
What else are you working on at the minute?
Well, I guess after the zine fair, I've been really excited about how do I make more art, book, zine things. What are the other opportunities for that? The zine machine, I need to refurb that in some capacity. I
love the renaissance of the tactile, more tangible.
It's definitely been having more of a resurgence lately.
Yeah,
and I love calling a trend. And I even said last year, I was like, zines are coming back next year. And I know they haven't gone anywhere. Like, Festival of the Photocopier, I think this year was its 18th or 19th year.
Oh, jeez.
That's amazing.
That is.
But I think in Brisbane specifically, I think we've had an ebb and flow of it. And I think this year would definitely be a year where people are bringing back, like, book, zine, like, forms like that, physical things like that.
Yeah, I think in many, many creative spaces, whenever you have an opportunity to present something tactile and tangible, music is an obvious one. Literary, obvious as well. Those two, like the vinyls and books.
That's had such a huge comeback, yeah.
Massive.
Even photography. Film photography.
Actually, there's been a few guests that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
And their whole thing right now is publishing books. Like, sweet. Because they're all, being around about our age, so they started on film, right? Whereas the new age, they probably don't have that luxury. So how their relationship with photography and having something tactile, it might not resonate the same. It might be a different relationship with photography, But for the most part, the people that I've spoken with, they're very much about something that you can hold, feel, and tell a story that way.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
It's so exciting.
Yeah, I love how it's all coming back. Like I've spoken with my clients as well. I still really push the business card.
Yeah.
There's so much in that. Like I explain to them, like that is an opportunity for you to communicate so much with a sense that we barely engage with these days because it's all digital, right? Like you're relying on Apple to determine how people interact with your brand, right? Like you take some agency, give them something that they can hold, something that they can feel, and then that tells them more about your brand, right? There's so much loaded in that.
Everything's an opportunity to have a conversation. And even at cons, like people would say like, oh, what are some of your con like tips? And I was like, get 500 business cards printed specifically just for that. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you're going to hand them out. People love collecting them. If you can make a cool business card, like make it fun for you. Make it cool.
Yeah, know your audience, right? Like people are there to collect shit. Give them
Make sure
something
you're
to
in that
collect.
pile. Yeah, and give them out to people. And especially things like cons, like maybe they're not going to buy from you today and that's okay. But if they keep your thing and they follow you on socials or they follow you somewhere or they sign up to your newsletter and then they like might see something from your shop and they might buy it and they might give it to a friend. You know, there's so many ways that you have no idea where this one piece of communication is going to end up and the ripple it will have in the pond.
And it's a small investment.
So small. Yeah. Oh my God. Like I can be a snob, but I will get business cards done by Vistaprint because it's cheap. If I'm going to get 1,000 of them, get them done. Get it out there. But there are parts of me that I'm like, oh, I do like nice texture and I do like a colored edge. And totally.
So
nice.
Speaking of connections and you know people trying to find you, where can they connect with you?
Yeah. So Instagram, I've got 4 accounts.
Yeah.
Got so many. Forge.forward on Instagram. Cash. It's like Cash Money Crow, but it's spelt poorly. On Instagram as well. My salon's lost.salon, which is just nice for the film photos because I started taking film photos. And I do have I'm going to make another Instagram account specifically for the Zine Machine actually, but I haven't started that yet. So
if you just go on any one of those ones,
Forge one,
go to that one, and then you can find yourself going down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely, yeah. And like the link on the Instagram is to the website, which is just forgeforward.co, online store, as well as signing up to my newsletter, which I do once a month, which I love. They're usually pretty long and pretty involved, and there's story time. There's like chat prompts. There's one I did like market tips. You know, there's lots of stuff that I put in there. So yeah,
there's heaps.
Yeah, it's fun.
Amy, thanks for this chat.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been great, Wayne. You're
awesome.
This is lovely. Thank you so much for having me.